Josh, thanks for taking the time to speak to me. I know you already touched on Scott and Jason, so this is great.
No, well, my pleasure to be able to speak to you because I had a great time watching this film, as I said to both Scott and to Jason. So, it's a great action film. I love, as an action fan, I love seeing the way things played out in that respect. But then you throw this idea of stoicism into the mix. I think it takes the movie to a different level because it's not something we've seen before. So, to begin with, why did you want to explore that principle within this story, and where did the inspiration come from for you?
That's a good question. So, Stoics, okay, I can actually play back a recording in my head of my dad saying the Stoics, meaning, the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the philosophy from Europe, from, Mediterranean, and how that's played out. Okay. Now, we're not pretending in this film that, hey, these are the Stoics of ancient Greece, shall we say, or Rome, more to the point. This is a borrowing of an attitude of you're never too giddy or afraid, and you're never too down. You just deal with life. And these people deal with life, they have a belief system, and they stick to it. It's not all insane, daft, oh, woe is me, and you're begging for sympathy on social media. It's the antithesis of that. And so it came from my upbringing, not in terms of you will be stoic, John. It was just my dad had mentioned now and again, enough that in later life it would hurt me. And I think at one point, I actually shattered my spine. I was in a spinal unit, broke my back in an accident. And my dad came in to the hospital a couple of times to see me, well, regularly. But on one occasion, he brought a book, which was Marcus Aurelius' Meditations about Stoicism. I was kind of like, oh, somebody should make a film with this guy and maybe put a gladiator in it. But, at the time, I don't think it had just come out quite. But it was a formal introduction. My dad said, read that, So that was great. So, I learned a lot about Stoicism there. And then I met Scott Wright in 2019, and Scott said, who you've interviewed, who plays a Stoic, and does a very good job. And I said, he said, I want to make a film. I said, oh, so do I. Have been writing for quite a while. And he had an idea about a guy, and I took this idea about a guy and his daughter, and I made it. I just wrote the whole thing. The character, the Stoic, is from a clan. He's going on a road trip with his daughter, and it became The Lineman. And this guy just got out of jail. Completely different film to this. But it would cost too much. I knew that. I've been a first assistant director for 25 years. Okay. I'm actually in Rome now. We're prepping a film, which is fantastic at Cinecittà Studios. I left the door open because I wanted you to hear the atmosphere of the apartments, the flats I'm in. It's not quite that time of night yet. But so I wrote The Lineman. That great. Really enjoyed that during the pandemic, that experience. I've written a few screenplays, but we couldn't afford to make that. And we got some money together here and there, different people. And I said, look, we can make money for a film for X. And I think I can do it through people I know, stunts, etc., buy insurance, bang, 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 bang. And it was like, okay, so I had this idea of this guy who's just in the woods on his own, who his granddaughter's taken and his wife's killed, and he's an old fella, he's retired, and he deals with these bad guys who are up to no good in the neighborhood, okay? And that was a treatment. And then I went, hold on, I'll just put the Stoic in it. Well, it said just as I developed the treatment, I was like, oh, hold on, this could be him, and we can tie it in with the clan, and we can introduce Stoicism to this very simple trope of the guy in the woods rescuing his daughter. So then it became two women who were drug mules who were kept by a drug gang. And one of the stories is I've worked the homeless, and one of the stories is a true story I was told. That one character tells the story in the film, and it isn't made up.
Wow.
And so I was quite inspired by those female characters, and they're not downplayed in the film, but they're the ones who are stoic. Because while the stoic, and the mercenaries are all into fighting and worried about the stoic killing them, or how they feel about his own morality, these women just were there. We're just going to let you idiots play it out. So, and I think it's, and I remember one review that said, the women don't do much. And so actually they do a lot, because they kind of just stand there and let these guys bounce off each other, fight each other. But the script worked, the script came together, and we had Jason Fleming came in to play Carlisle and Bruce Payne. came in, which was fantastic to play the uber villain, and he did it. He invested so much. I mean, he killed me in a 4-hour Zoom about the whole script, but it was great. But we had Rocky Boy Williams, he had a big fight sequence in Don't Breathe 2, and he was great in Angel Has Fall at the beginning. We had George McCluskey, Stuart Brennan, who's a filmmaker in his own right, and his company Stronghold really helps out massively. Declan Fletcher, George McCluskey, my daughter playing the voice of a young child at one point, and there's just so many people to thank. You know, Neil Jones, who's a line producer and producer. I mean, as a first AD, I've worked under Neil for 4 films now for Sky Cinema and Amazon and what have you, and this one we're doing at the moment. And he came in and went, "I'll help you out, John." You know, and he was brought Jason Fleming in and Bruce Payne, and then Neil brought another producer in called Jennifer Chippendale, and she helped immensely in casting and in production. She's produced a couple of films herself, and she teaches now, former actress, but she brought a hell of a lot of knowledge, which was great. And Terry Wright, Scott's dad, and we got together an incredible crew. Mandy Gaffey, makeup, she's such a pro. She runs courses for Netflix. I first did commercials. I knew Mandy through that. She was like, "Let me read the script." She came in, and the great thing about such a fantastic makeup team, Lorna Whitaker and Mandy, is that they set the tone with the cast at the beginning of the day, which was fantastic. Gareth Eames sound, Gary Rogers, incredible DOP. Really, we did some great camera tests a month or 2 before shooting, lighting tests, and he really nailed it. I was like, "You get what I'm after," you know. Archstone, Saban, they've been great. And Gary Kane, stunts, who's a friend of mine I've worked on a lot. And he did us a good deal on this, and did the risk assessment, and off we went. We shot it in 15 days because it was shootable. I mean, look, I had a lot of shots in my head. I knew what they were going to look like because I'd wrecked, the site. We're very lucky. Beautiful old stone house in North Wales, and I think Scott touched on this. And the outhouses were just incredible, so adventurous and exciting. Looking through doorways, looking through windows, up the doorway. But I love it, and that kind of John Ford thing, that frame within a frame. And so that really lends itself to the story, I felt, because you're able to frame people. You're able to frame the Stoic in a silhouette, and that for me is always very exciting, where the audience see this and then they see a frame within it. I want to know what's beyond that, You leave a door open. Hey, you leave a door open in the background. What's going to happen? Hitchcockian thing. So, but it's that kind of mise en scène, as people say, the meaning in the scene, the meaning in the picture, which I felt, not to be too academic about it, but I felt in very simple terms, this fantastic location lent itself to us. It was rugged. It was just untamed. It was stunning. When the light hit the rocks, it bounced and it glowed, and just great. And we lit it with candles, firelight, daylight, and just big soft film. But it looks cinematic. It looks great, and of course, lots of atmos. So I had the old fog pumper there, the old Artem, running round. So I'd run up and down in the background, stand 20 yards away from the camera, and go, "Action! Is that any good?" No. Obviously, I'd have to watch the playback and consult with the actors. But that I trusted the actors, trusted the crew. I just want that atmosphere to be just to work, just to sit. And I think we got also with Stronghold and Mr. Diaz, who is a young Spanish musician. He did an incredible soundtrack through Stronghold Pictures for us, and really not just the music. We found a folk theme which Scott and I wanted, but he also, I said, look, I want to capture a kind of a folk feel of the British countryside. So I said, we need owls. I know there's no wolves in England, but we need wolves. Female fox screams at night. We've got those. And there's a point where the Stoics having a conversation with Jane, one of the women, over a campfire at night. And Scott did this thing where she asked me questions. I'd always think before you speak. I always think, we use it, we don't use it. The editor's going to love it. And she asked me a question. He thinks, and he looks over there, and he looks at her, and we went, female fox scream over there. Not too much on the soundtrack, but just sunk in nicely with those beats, just augmented the whole thing. So I think, it was an incredible experience. And having worked, I'm very lucky because the first AD, again, I worked with Neil Jones, but I've also worked with some who's directed in his own right. but I've worked with Kenny Glennan, Gillis McKinnon, Alex Hardcastle, a lot of Pan-Atlantic, Emmy-nominated, BAFTA, what have you. Very practical directors, and I've learned a lot, And I think I've worked with, I worked with something like 95 directors in my life as a first, because I grew up on soap. I was Brookside for 5 years, done loads of Hollyoaks, Emmerdale, Coronation Street back in the day. So you shoot a movie, you shoot 90 minutes in 2 weeks, or a week. So Brookside, we used to shoot 90 minutes in 7 days with one camera, and you learn so much, not just speed, but efficiency of performance and speaking to actors. And so I believe that certainly helped to shoot it in 15 days anyway, Yeah. So is that next question, please, if you don't mind?
No, I mean,
carry on.
absolutely fascinating to hear the journey you've been on to make this film happen. Because I think a lot of the time people don't realize the work that go into making these movies a reality. And I know from talking to Scott, this was just like this was a passion project for him. But of course, as the writer and director, he had to be right in your eyes, I would imagine, to play the Stoic. So when it came to casting him in that role, why was he the right choice for you to play this character who, like I said to Scott, he thinks about everything he's doing. He's a man of few words. A lot of layers to this character.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing about the character was this particular Stoic Aurelius there's more of it in the lineman, which, if you will, I wrote first, but it's more of a sequel. Is that he's like the Heathcliff. I don't know if you know. I've always loved. I've always loved, and then forget to name the title. Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights was a child found on the streets of Liverpool by Kathy's father and brought over to Yorkshire, and they've had the love affair, the incredibly passionate relationship they had. And I've always written Aurelius as that Heathcliff to the Stoics. He's kind of like he's not the runt of the litter, but he's the outsider. But Mother, his relationship with her is explored in the lineman. It's touched on here on one phone call, and we're introduced to Mother, of course, and how she tests men and women to be Stoics. But so he's part of the clan, the cult, but he's never been part of the body of the family, so to speak. So he's kind of a favorite. So that's something too. And I think Scott, because I said, look, the Stoics, they've got like big necks, big forearms, but not muscular guys. They've got practical muscles, like our dads were before gyms were invented, or popular. And, just had muscles that they used at work. And lots of like that. If you saw them, they'd just be like hair down, really. You wouldn't, like golems in the wood. Some of them. Scott presented that differently, but that was fine, because it's like, well, actually, he is different. He's his own guy, and he does straddle Western society and the Stoics. So in the line when he goes home, and it's actually terrace houses where his wife and child are, don't give too much away about that, should we make it? But so he straddles the two worlds. So I think Scott's take on it, worked. Obviously we talked about it, but I was proud of that. I was proud of a lot of the characters. Rocky Boy Williams, Gerald Benjamin, Anka Evans, and Mia Ford, who played the women. We really talked about, because what I said to a lot of the characters, such as Rocky, who's got a great character. I mean, God, that he played it beautifully. I said, look, I'm not going to over direct you. There's 10 in the cast. There's too many of you. I'm going to talk to you about your life experience, what you think, and how it pertains to your character. And then I'm going to let you go. And we'll talk weeks before. So with the guys, we'd have this chat. We'd have a group chat on Zoom at one point with the cast, and I'd send them all, because most of them someone had to hold an M16 rifle, and we only had one prop, but it was supposed to, And so I said, look, watch this instructional video I found on YouTube about how to teach GIs in Vietnam on how to operate an M16. So everyone watched it. We can't afford to take it to a training camp, a boot camp, as one guy once suggested. Yeah, right. But that's half our budget. But but there were things like that, and remember Rocky ringing me up once, and his son, who's in the military, was just passing out actually after we wrapped the film, and Rocky said, "This bonnet." Because they call the men in bonnets the Stoics, and you have the warning, as of if a bonnet's hung on your door, it's like you're up to no good, stop it. And then if you hear the whistle at night, the old World War One over the top trench whistle, if you hear that, you know the Stoics coming for you. So these men are haunted by, in the countryside, this whistle coming across the night sky. And Rocky ran me at once, and there's a scene which British TV doesn't do enough of, if at all, and the Americans do very well, which is like something like in The Sopranos, where Tony Soprano just sits and thinks, or popular again, Breaking Bad, Walter White, just watch him thinking all the time. You could watch that actor, just Bryan Cranston, make that character think, what I'm going to do, how to sell this to Skylar, what to do about this bad guy, how to get them cops. No one ever, in British TV, or to an extent film, no one ever just sits and thinks. It's all, we worship the word. So I wrote one scene which was just Brace thinks. And we did it a couple of times with Rocky. And Rocky had this bonnet, and just go back to talk about how I directed the characters, was Rocky has to hold the bonnet and consider it. And the Stoic sees this from a distance, as you know, which is how they connect. He's like, and he shows it respect, not knowing he's being watched. He shows it respect, and that's their connection. But it was that thing of Rocky called me and he said, "What is this bonnet? I mean, is it like a beret?" And I went, "It's like a beret. You would treat it like if a British paratrooper handed me his red beret. I mean, there's no way I'd put it on. I'm not qualified, but you treat it with respect, yeah." So so with directing the actors, you found common values and knowledge, and then you let them go with that, and just trusted them.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you got you've listed the cast, and you do have a fantastic cast in this film, I think, from top to bottom. And of course, I need to bring up Jason, having spoken to him, because I could tell he was really pleased to come on to this movie and, to help you guys out and to, maybe bring a few more eyes to a project, given his history and how many iconic kind of roles he's been part of. So what did it mean to you to have him come in, even just as that introductory role? Because that character does a great job of establishing that these Stoics, these are people that these guys need to be scared of.
It was an amazing thing. I've been aware of Jason since, what was it, 1997 Lock, Stock. So we're getting on 28 years, 27 years. Look, I've been in like a lot of the cast, you've interviewed a lot of actors yourself. You get used to it. You know where to put yourself when you meet famous people. I did a thing with John Hammond, Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter once for Sky TV, and it was kind of like they just wanted to get on with the job. And it's like, oh, thank God for that, because we don't have to do all this showbiz nonsense. We just get on with the job. Jason was the same. Bruce, the whole cast was the same. But with Jason and Bruce, because I've been aware of both of them since the 90s, they were reading my words and playing my characters. And they were playing them as I imagined them. With Bruce added a lot, actually, but fundamentally for Bruce, and particularly Jason, embellished it. I'm like, you're doing what? Remember Martin Short, name dropping again there, said to me, actors are writers. And it's like, it's true. You write. The performance is to me, you're writing, you're embellishing what you get the text. And to have Jason Fleming perform so well, I remember 3-page, A, with all the lads, all the mercenaries as a scene, and B, as a 3-page two-hander meaning two people in the scene, with Rocky Boy Williams, who held his own very well with him. And you're just watching Jace just play what you've written and what you direct, and you go, right, now we'll come around here, let's get Jason. We're going to go over the other side of the eye line just for this one beat. And Jace's like, I get it. And it was just incredible. That superseded, I've never been starstruck, except Michael Kitchen once, but to actually meet Jason was one thing, but that was fine. I can cope with that easily. But to actually have him perform what I've written and to listen to me as a director, and I just went faster, harder, good enough, fine. And actors of that experience, you don't have to talk it out. You can just give them bang, bang, and that's it. I remember I read an interview with Ridley Scott once, and I took what he said to heart with Jason. And he said, he was talking about directing Hopkins in Hannibal. And he said, and with Julianne Moore, and he said, Julianne Moore, he said, you don't have to talk it out. They get it. They've studied literature, theatre, bang, 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 you name it, all their life. Just a couple of words and let them go, And that's what I managed to do with Jason, and again with Bruce, with all the cast. And such a pleasure, such a pleasure. I think only once or twice I needed to get into an embellished conversation, but that was productive. And we had a crew who they just it was like butter. They just responded so beautifully. It just everyone, because what we did in the first day was we shot the guy in the cell had been tested to be a stoic, and the scene that a lot of publicists now use, which is Jerome Benjamin with the flare at night out in the field, and he's on his own, and the stoics around, and it's pitch black, and his van's died, and we shot those first two scenes in one day, and I did that for a reason. Then the crew are on board because of that. We're doing something now. This isn't two people talking over a cup of tea. Like, we're moving. So once we got those production standards in the can, I think it really helped. And again, great support, Jennifer Chippendale, Terry Wright there, Scott's dad in the background, and Neil Jones in particular as well. Very experienced producer, just going, John, stop. South Walian guy, he's Merthyr Tydfil guy with Neil. So, John, don't worry. Fine. Okay, thanks, Neil. But it was an experience and a half. And look, man, I can talk about filmmaking and the Stoic all night, but obviously, but the true test is people have to watch it, and I'm just looking forward to the reaction. We've sold all over the world: Japan, Australia, New Zealand, South America, former Yugoslavia, not Russia for obvious reasons, but certainly Uzbekistan, as all the Stan countries, so to speak, that kind of Commonwealth of countries, commonly called the Stans. They say Japan and Spain, and I'm just really looking forward to what people, if some guy goes to work tomorrow in Japan, having seen the film, and is thinking about it, job done. You don't need a statuette. That's just great.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've moved past the days, where films that don't necessarily go straight into cinemas, they go, I guess you'd call direct to DVD, and being from the UK, you'd see them on the supermarket shelf or whatever. But of course, I think it's a good thing the world has changed, and a movie like this gets that worldwide distribution because it can go onto those digital platforms and be seen by, like you say, a global audience. So to work with Saban Films, that must have been such an exciting thing for you as a filmmaker, as you say, to get this film out to the world.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. So we went through Archstone, who were great, sales agent in LA. And when Saban came on board, they watched it, and they just came back quite quickly and just went, yeah. And they offered us, well, I don't want to go into it, but basically it was a good fee. It wasn't riches, no one was going to pay the mortgage off, but it was, it was significant for a British film of this budget, because generally they're just taking in like a fishing net, for no money up front, and it's just like, let's see how we go, guys. But we'll distribute it. We'll see what we get. I might send you a few quid in a couple of years, but this has been a different experience altogether, And to see their logo and the glossy American logo, the whole thing is kind of like, wow. So when I was digging fire pits in North Wales in my hands to make the fire for the actors and to round, and I wasn't expecting this. I was just happy to be making a film. So yeah, I think we all felt like that. We're all stood there in the rain, going, right, did you get that, John? Yeah, we got it. Don't worry, we're moving on. I don't think we were expecting quite the exposure we've had. And yourself, of course. It's just incredible,
Well, I'm really pleased because I think so many films, talking of direct to DVD in inverted commas, that there's so many great films that just, go that direction. So I'm glad this film isn't one of them, and it's been seen by an audience because I think it deserves it. And because as an action film, it's a great time. I was quite glad. I know when I talked to Scott, he said he's not the biggest fan of these prolonged action scenes, and I think a lot of films now, they're tempted to try and go down that John Wick route where you have these 4, 5, 6 minute epic kind of action scenes. But I think for the Stoic, that wouldn't work because he comes in, he's very blunt, he takes these guys out very easily, very quickly. So to direct action like that, what was that like for you? And were you glad that you avoided those tropes of these big, massive kind of fight scenes we see in so many movies?
Absolutely. The thing with the Stoics is that they're not allowed to use guns, mechanical weapons, and not that. I mean, a gun isn't the mark of a coward or anything. The military use it and people use it and they have to, whether you're police, what have you. In fact, it's a brave thing to go out and have to carry one. But I always remember, have you read The Dark Knight Returns?
Yes, yeah.
Of course you have. Of course you have. And he takes on a gang of youths, street gang, and he said, "Get rid of your guns. We're going to use our fists." Anyway, and he said, and this was just the philosophy of the novel. I think it was Frank Miller, and he said, "A gun, the gun's a coward's weapon," and it's always stuck with me. Not that I think the gun is a coward's weapon; it's far from it. As I've just said, look at the military, the police, you name it. But the thing is, the idea with the Stoics, with the violence, with the action, is that if you're going to kill someone or you're going to visit yourself upon someone, for whatever, however horrible that is, for whatever moral reason whatever good you think you're doing of it, the Stoics have to own that experience. You are responsible for that experience. So do it. Aurelius's philosophy is, if you're going to be violent quickly, get it over with. It's not for your own entertainment. It's not a piece of enjoyment. You've got to use whatever's around. I've got a glass here. Stoic could use that on me if it was here. You've just got to get on with it and do it. And it's not an art form. It isn't a ballet. Like you say, it's not prolonged. You just get on with it. And that character-driven action, I think lends something to it. Anyway, yeah. So I enjoyed that, and I did enjoy it because all the actors, they've all got different deaths, and they all got into it. Particularly Tom Feasby, who played Pope. He did a superb job in the film. I haven't mentioned him actually, and his death was the physically toughest, I think, for all the actors. And I'm not going to say what it was, but I think you might know which one it was. And he just, given the temperature of Wales in February, North Wales in February, he took it on. He did well. But I don't want to say how he died. No spoilers. But but Tom did a great job.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to spoil that either. But yes, I know exactly the one you're talking about, and that was a great one. And shooting in Wales, I know obviously as a filmmaker, there are going to be practical or financial reasons for where you pick to shoot, but to find the right look for this world and obviously introducing us to this world that by the sound of it, you and Scott hopefully are going to continue to expand. What made it the right place in that respect to bring this world to life and to introduce this character at the Stoic, would you say?
Well, the house was perfect because the house had mod cons to an extent. You'll see in the film the lighting, the kitchen island, and everything. But then it also had the gorgeous 16th century stonework, all around the cobbles and everything. So and what I didn't want in the film was 0 laptop screens, 0 smartphones. So all the phones are little burner phones, little old Nokias. Or something like you don't actually see. So a screen at all. So the look of the film comes from the lineman, which was as I said, the thing about Aurelius and his daughter, the Stoic and his daughter. And in that film, I said to Scott, remember, and to Neil Jones actually, if I ever make this film, the look of it is all the cars are 30 years old. Everything's quite retro. You've got technology, you've got Wi-Fi, but you don't make a big thing about smooth Apple Macs or what have you. So I think that environment for the Stoic lent itself because it had the beautiful plush, kitchen and a couple of other rooms, but at the same time, it had a real sense of history and earthiness. I won't say gritty, but earthiness to it. Which is what I'm after. Is what I was after. Is like because somebody said to me, "Is this a period film?" No, it's not a period film. Some guy's got a mobile phone, and the guns are 20th century M16, But at the same time, like it's still a period in 2010. But I wanted that sense of human values and human experiences and human relationships are not based on social media or how many times you've texted somebody, but it's based on I've just witnessed something interesting about you or moral about you or something I want to follow, and that's why I'm with you. Such as Jane, she's been tossed between drug gangs all her life, as she said, and a toy, a mule, the whole thing. Again, based on a true story, but thousands of true stories, I'm sure. But she doesn't fear the Stoic because of the way he presents himself to her, which is like, this is me, this is what I'm going to do, take it or leave it. you know, and she doesn't fear him because he doesn't have an agenda. He's exactly what he says on the tin, you know, and that kind of like functionality of people is the functionality in the props. Everything's very simple. A snuff box, you know, a stick that somebody has because there aren't enough weapons. I'll just grab a stick. You know, the way that the Stoic uses wood to kill people, the campfires, everything's basic. It's the people who are interesting, I find. You know, that's why people look. I'm not crazy about. You know, I can watch Jurassic Park and love it. I can watch any sci-fi, anything. But for me, it's character and story, character and story. It's what I've always studied and been brought up on. You know, David Mamet, you know, Aaron Sorkin. Oh, I could talk about British American writers all night, but I'm lots of writers. But I'm talking about being brought up again. My dad brought me up on this on Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is, you know, Jesus Christ to Luke Skywalker, potentially to John Wick. You know, that whole thing of where the hero has the same journey throughout, and I'm interested in that journey and arc in all characters. In Brace, leader of the mercenaries in the film, in the Stoic, who actually, even though he's a bit Terminator-esque in his single-mindedness, he has an arc which he actually says, "I owe you the women" at the end, because actually it made me think about myself and why I'm doing this and what I'm leaving behind with my family, the whole thing. And that, you know, that kind of thing of it's about character and people want to watch character. You know, Star Wars did it beautifully. It regenerated after God knows how many decades, I think, or several decades. It regenerated that in Godfather in the 70s, character. And then Jaws did it. We watched those men on the boat. Yes, there's a shark, but if those men on the boat had been dull and their relationships had been, you know, like you've got Quinn, who's the Irish, you know, the rough guy. You've got the intellectual, middle class intellectual played by, you know, your man, I forgot his name. You've got Roy Scheider, you know, and so you got the rough guy, you got the intellectual, you got the man in the middle, common man in the middle, Roy Scheider. And it was a brilliant dynamic, absolutely incredible, you know. And then you do it with Star Wars, where you put Ben Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo together, and you get that dynamic, which is absolutely superb. You know, the kind of the naive, the blustered, had enough, and then the wise, pragmatic man in the middle, who's just kind of a bit of a blank page. And that dynamic, I think people love it. I think people want to watch character all the time. It isn't about being dazzled. It isn't about special effects and CG. It's about scripts and character. I think. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't have, as you say, those elements, it's never going to work. It doesn't matter how good the action is. It doesn't matter how nice the visuals are. You know, I'm a big superhero movie fan, as you can probably see, but when you get one of those
Yeah.
movies and it's all about the, you know, the visuals and the VFX and doesn't have the story, well, they're not good. And I think this film genuinely, you know, I think this film really excels because of that and the mythology as well. Finally, just a final question for you. You know, I know you said you grew up, you were introduced to this idea of Stoics, but you are creating a mythology for this film. You're introducing Mother, you're introducing Aurelius. You know, it's a world you're making very much. You know, you mentioned The Dark Knight Returns. That was obviously based on that kind of comic book mythology. But now you've created this, is it something you hope to continue exploring? I know you've mentioned The Line Man, but do you see this as a beginning of a partnership for you and Scott, where hopefully, you know, you can take this movie and turn it into a franchise over several films just moving forward?
Who knows? Look, if the funding's there, and you know the deal's there, and you know, absolutely, why not? You know, I think there is obviously, because you know the sequel, so to speak, is already written. You could very easily go into, just as John Wick goes into his community of assassins, you know, with the hotel and the whole thing. You can easily go into the Stoics themselves. You could do a Stoic tale set in the 1900s.
Yeah.
You know, you could do one set in the 1970s. You know, you could do one in 1984 around the miners' strike, which I think would be fascinating. You know, and you can absolutely go into up to Scotland, as in the which is what happens in the Lineman, and actually go into the cult, go into their house and see how they behave. Which to me, the closest thing I can think of is probably the Amish in Witness. where, and I think, whereby the Amish have their beliefs that, they're Christian, and that they shun modern technology, and they just work dawn till dusk. They're an incredibly productive community, and that kind of thing I don't think was even explored enough in Witness, and I'd love to explore it with the Stoics. It'd be fascinating. Mother's an incredible character. You haven't seen enough of her yet. I think she is, because her relationship with Aurelius is an entirely different film. And I quite like the fact. I love the way Carol Holt, who played Mother, played it. She did two tapings for me. I asked her to redo her audition with a Scottish accent, and she did. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah. We went with Carol. I was kind of okay, and then she just blew us away. She blew us away on camera on the day, and her wit, and the way she treats Aurelius is like such contempt. Of course, I asked for that, and it's in the writing, but she pulled it off. She embellished it. She just incredible. I was so grateful for what she gave the whole film, to be honest.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Jonathan, like I said, I watch a lot of movies, I do a lot of interviews, but this one I can genuinely say I've been so excited to talk to all of you about it because I think it's a really special movie. I think people are going to love it, and I'm just glad it's getting this global audience because I want a sequel because I want to go back to this world. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate it. Thank you
No,
for your
thank
time.
you. No, again, congratulations on this one because I'm sure it's going to really take off because it's something new which we don't always get all the time. So yeah, thank you again for taking the time to take us through it.
Fantastic. You're very welcome. You're very
Great to
welcome.
meet
Hopefully
you.
speak to you again.
Definitely. Well, yeah, for the sequel.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.